Welcome back to another edition of the Caspian Game Awards. Now, it's actually kind of funny that I'm actually streaming this today, because, well, I mean, first of all, I was supposed to stream this tomorrow, but or not tomorrow, yesterday, but, well, let's just say that there was a lot of, very hard choices I had to have made for this, particular edition, because, well, 2019 was actually a pretty okay to pretty good year, surprisingly enough. And, well, let's just say I just ended up not having enough time for me to be able to figure out what I ultimately chose. But also, more importantly, well, I didn't realize it, but currently what's going on right now is the Oscars, so I mean, that probably means no one's going to be watching this stream, but that's fine because I still like doing this anyways. And besides, once we're done with the Game Awards and once we're done with the Grammys, you're up next, Oscars. But anyway, obviously that's for another time, as in probably in the next like 2 years or so. But anyways, so welcome back to another edition of the Caspian Game Awards, where we pretty much completely revise, at least in my opinion, what the best games represent each year is supposed to be. So, now, actually, before I get into this, I do want to, like I said, apologize for the fact I didn't stream yesterday. Like I said, just way more than I could chew. But also, I'm going to start making up for that because this week is actually spring break for me, which means I actually have time to stream a little bit more. Though I am thinking I am going to backpedal on my original idea of what I was going to do. Because originally I was going to stream like another playthrough, but I think I kind of just want to play a few. I think I just, for this week at least, I kind of just want to play some chill games and hell, maybe even do a collab or two with some people that I know. So that's kind of the game plan, at least for this week. So I hope you guys are pretty excited about that. Which, yes, that does mean that I am going to stream multiple times on some days. So I'm pretty excited about that. And, of course, I will try to make sure that I do get this by Saturday. Next week, I am going to have to do this on Friday. So that's going to be fun. I will also try to get some more guests on here. I know Goldie was in the first episode that we did, but I kind of want to see if I can get some other people and their takes as well, because I think it'd be pretty exciting to talk about. But yeah, no, that's all I really got to say for now. Of course, this is also the first year we're going into the 2010s. So this is 5 years ago as of this recording. So, which is kind of weird to think about. But, you know, it is what it is. But I'm still excited regardless. So, and like I said, for those who are not familiar with this series, this is basically a series where, like I said, we look back and assess whether or not the Game Awards got the nominees right, as well as the, actual winners correct. And let's just say it's been a pretty rocky couple of years that we've talked about when it came to all the 2020s thus far. So, did the 2010s do anything better? In some ways. Again, keep in mind that, as we go further and further back in time, obviously the power of hindsight is way more visible. And so because of that, we're definitely going to see, while there are some games that definitely did get the proper recognition throughout the 2010s, there's also some games that have aged like sour milk as far as their winnings, and
it's not good.
Yeah, so do keep that in mind, because oh boy. But of course, let's get into what exactly we will be discussing for this particular episode. So, originally I was going to do what I did last time with giving out an award for best game by a new studio. However, after doing some research, there really wasn't anything that like stood out from this year. So unfortunately, we are gonna have to revoke that award for now. But rest assured, we will be giving out that award in 2018. For the 2018 episode. It's just there just was not much for me to work with. And again, I like to personally have at least 4 nominees per category, but I only found about like 3, so I couldn't find a 4th one, which was pretty unfortunate. But as far as the other categories, those are still going to be in the go. So indie, action adventure, role playing, shooter, sim strategy, multiplayer, DLC expansion, remake, remaster, art direction, narrative, and then of course the titular game of the year is going to be the winner. And also, if you guys hear any background noise, I do apologize. It's my family watching or relatives, whatever. It's them watching the Oscars going on right now. So, which actually, fun fact, I actually do have someone that I know somewhat personally who's actually in the Oscars right now. Like, they're not being nominated, but they're actually in the room watching that thing right there. Like, they're actually in the building where they do the Oscars, which is pretty interesting. And that's how you know I have my connections, but I don't really utilize them all that much. But anyways, so of course, let's give ourselves a refresher of all the rules for this. Of course, biggest rule, at least for me, it must be a game that released in that entirety of that year. We're not the fucking Grammys where we have weird cutoff dates. Like, it has to be something from between January 1st and December 31st of that year. December will count for this. It will not count for the next year, and we didn't count it for 2020. So, if a game came out in 2019, and that also includes by region, which I will get into more of that in our, once we get to the 2000s, because there were a lot of games that actually released in outside of the US first. That's why they'll be counted for certain years over there, because, but anyways. So yeah, it has to be from that year. Rule number 2. It must be a game that had to have a decent to pretty good launch. Games fixed after the fact will only apply by a case-by-case scenario, and it really just depends on if I really, really do like the game. So, and of course, no early access games, so no games that are in beta, alpha, or pre-alpha are allowed. So, yeah. And then, as for the rules for the game of the year, it needs to be a game that is generally well liked by people, and it has to be a completely new game. No remakes or remasters allowed. And of course, only games I'm personally interested in will be chosen. Art style, aesthetics, and biases, those are the things that do matter to me more. And if it's... Because here's the thing. Let me give you an example. And this one's a pretty obvious example for those who are confused. Even though that this franchise is even though Fallout is a very popular franchise with a lot of people, I don't like the aesthetics of the game, therefore I won't nominate those games. Because something for me that is my interest is different than others. So this is a biased show, but I don't care. But of course, even if even with that, just keep in mind, this is all just my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, that's completely fine. Just let me know down in the chat or let me know in our social media down below. But anyways, I think that's about all I got to really say about this. Let's get into the actual nominees, shall we? So, all right, let's get into this. So, first up, Best Indie Game. Best Independent Game. So, this one... People are going to give me shit for saying this. 2019 was not a really exciting year for indie games. I know, that's a very shocking statement, but... I don't know, it's just 2019, like, I was able to find plenty, but, like, even some of the ones that I did end up choosing, I am honestly kind of iffy on, like, I don't know how else to describe it. But of course, let's get into what the Game Awards actually ended up choosing for Best Indie Game nominees. So, like, I don't know. It's just, this isn't a bad list, but it's not like, it's like two that I really like, I do agree with, two I definitely don't agree with, and then one that I'm just so conflicted on. So let's talk about it. So the ones that okay, so first off, Baba Is You. It's kind of like a puzzle game. Is this like a puzzle adventure game? Is that kind of the vibe? Let me look at it again. Again, I want to make sure that I refresh myself. Yeah, like this is like a game that kind of simulates like an old Commodore 64 game. And well, if you guys know me, I'm not really a big fan of a lot of stuff from the 80s. So this just kind of felt like it was because part of that wave of the 2010s that was basically just pandering to shit from the 1980s, that I absolutely despised, frankly. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, well, okay. I guess to be fair, it wasn't like the whole, you know, neon throwback 80s shit that I absolutely got fucking sick and tired of, but it just felt like it was kind of more pandering to that sort of crowd. I know Katana Zero kind of does that too. Well, kind of, but not really. I'll get to that in a little bit. But, like, I don't know. It's just not really something I was interested in. And if I'm going to be honest, this one's probably going to get me killed. I just don't really care for the aesthetics of Untitled Goose Game, like, at all. Like, it looks like it's the same sort of graphics as, like, something like Happy Wheels, which even back whenever that was popular, I wasn't really a big fan of to begin with. So, like, I told you that people were going to be upset with me tonight. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. I hate this sort of just, like, I don't know, low poly sort of, like, I guess sort of flashy looking game. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? I hate that aesthetic so much because it just looks lazy, like unfinished at points, which I get that's part of the appeal, but I never liked that at all. So I think this one's a bit of an L. And again, this one just kind of made more sense at the time because this was one of those games that was played a lot on YouTube at the time. So yeah, it just made more sense at the time. As for Katana Zero, I mean, I guess it is a very late 80s looking sort of game. But like, okay, here's the difference between this and like something like, Bobby's. Oh shoot, come on. And again, I'm just trying to remind myself. Yeah, the difference is that like that's only the cover art that is like that. This game is a 2D action game. That is pixelated, but it simulates more of a Super Nintendo game than like, an NES game. And I think that works way more in its favor. And admittedly, I just am more of an action guy, personally, anyways. So yeah. And then we got Outer Wilds, which is just kind of more of a adventure-y sort of game. It is an action adventure, but like it's more baseline adventure. And of course, your whole goal is to just get out of the time loop that you're in. That's not a spoiler. That's actually in the description. So that's pretty cool. It takes some cues from something like Majora's Mask in that respect. And because, you have to get out of that sort of like, endless cycle with the moon, but that's a whole other discussion for another time. So, like, I get that this is definitely a game that definitely has a somewhat, like, unique idea that isn't really done too well. Or not, let me phrase that. That isn't done a lot, and it's done pretty well. That's what I meant to say. Excuse my language. So, I respect this one on here. And then we've got the Disco Elysium thing. So, this, I'm pretty sure, was, like, on a lot of people's top 10 lists. And as a matter of fact, this one was on, like, if not, like, a lot of people's, like, top 3. This is, like, a detective game. Like, a detective RPG, for those who don't know. I'm very conflicted about it. Because, like, again, it mostly stems from just sort of, well, for two things. Sort of the more grounded nature of this game, because this game is just more, it's more on, like, the lower end of, like, you know, action-y sort of things, which is fine. Like, if you're into those games, that is completely fine. But, like, I guess I just respect this one in more the sense that, like, you know, it isn't trying to be an action game, but at the same time, like, that's, I don't know. And then the number one thing for me, and this is gonna piss some people off as well, it's just I don't know if I like if I don't like the art style. Like, it's one of those, like, uncanny things where it's like, it looks like, I think, like, objectively speaking, it definitely is a good looking game. Like, if you want to just, you know, put my personal bias aside, then, like, yeah, I definitely get why this game was nominated, like, for, like, all sorts of stuff when it comes to its visuals, as well as its sort of gameplay. But, like, I don't know, this one is just kind of the one that, like, I'm teetering on. So, I mean, regardless of all that, though, it was the game that did end up winning at the official Game Awards. It actually won a ton of awards at that game. This is kind of a Last of Us Part 2 situation where it's like game journalists love to jerk themselves off to this fucking game. It's like every year, and that's something I've noticed with every year. Whether it's warranted or not, there's always, like, at least one game, like, each year that, like, pretty much sweeps a bunch of awards, whether it's warranted or not. 2019, Disco Elysium. 2020, Last of Us Part 2. 2021, Deathloop. 2022 was Elden Ring. Although, to be fair, that one was warranted. So, but, like, I don't know about this one. And truth be told, I haven't heard people talk about this game since. Like, is this a game that's, like, kind of just, it made more sense at the time? I don't think so, but, like, at the same time, I don't know. So, I mean, regardless of, like, just that, though, I did end up, well, conforming, and at least gave this, as well as Outer Wilds and Katana Zero, the nod. But I also added 3 more games in replacement of the other 2. So, first off, we've got Mordhau, which I didn't actually realize was an indie game. Like, I just assumed it was made by a bigger studio, but no, it was independently made. And it's a game that's basically similar to that of, like, Mountain Blade or the Chivalry games, where, you know, it's a medieval style hack and slash. And for a budget medieval hack and slash, it's actually not that bad. Like, I actually was thoroughly impressed with it. So, yeah, if you want like a good introduction to these sort of medieval combat style, like, hack and slash games, Mordhau is definitely like a good option. It's no For Honor where there's, like, a lot of mechanics involved to it. Like, this one is a pretty straightforward game, and I appreciate that. And then, of course, we got to bring in the retro shooter indie crowd at least a little bit. You guys know I'm pretty biased about this, but I don't care. A Medieval is a pretty underrated game. Like, as far as like shooter games from 2019 are concerned, I feel like this one kind of got a little bit shafted because 2019 was actually a okay year for shooter games. Like, it wasn't like a 2007, but like it was a pretty damn good year for like it was I'd say a pretty overall solid year for shooter games. And as far as like this one's concerned, in the sense that like we're talking about indie games here, yeah, no, I would definitely say that this is easily one of the better on that. There, excuse me. And of course, we've got Children of Morta, which is a RPG roguelike, somewhat. It's kind of a weird one. Like, it's kind of a roguelike. This one's also weird in the sense that this is kind of a mix between like a roguelike and a Diablo style game. So yeah, it kind of combines those sort of two elements together, which is at least commendable and interesting. So even though you guys know I've been very vocal about how much I really do not like roguelikes, I know I've been nominating a lot of them, but trust me when I say it, like, it's mostly just, when it comes to this game, it's mostly for its aesthetics, because just like with Katana Zero, this one's also a like more old school inspired look. So yeah, and truth be told, that's definitely the best part of the game. Again, this one just kind of made more sense at the time. Oh shoot, ad break. God damn it, I forgot to turn that off. Shit. Alright, let's just snore that for a little bit. But anyways, so those are the nominees. But what wins? Well, let's get into that. Got the envelope here. And let's announce the winner. So the award of the best indie game of 2019, in my opinion, goes to Outer Wilds. Shoot. There we go. Sorry. So, I mean, again, indie games for 2019 were just not really my cup of tea. But if I had to choose one, I would choose Outer Wilds. It has a cool aesthetic. It has a good mix of, like, you know, puzzles and like all that fun stuff. And yes, like that sort of challenge of trying to get everything done within that 22 minute 22-minute time span, while having to go back and then redo things over again and all that fun stuff. Like, yeah, it's challenging, but I think it's done. I think in this game, especially since they took a bit more of a Majora's Mask approach with this, it's way more rewarding, and I appreciate that. And I definitely do think that this game holds up in like several aspects because of it. So yeah, that's kind of my personal take on the best indie game of 2019. So you can take it or leave it. Okay. You can take it or leave it. Excuse me. All right. But let's move on. Best action adventure game. So, okay, this is kind of the opposite of the indie game situation. Whereas indie games, I don't know, they just really weren't entirely my cup of tea from this year. Action adventure, this was a tough call. Like, if I'm going to be honest, this was the sole reason why I had to take an extra day just to do this list, or to do this like podcast, because 2019 was a fucking banger for action adventure games. And again, keep in mind, how we're doing action adventure games is we're including action adventure games, but we're also including platformers and horror games, as well as just soul action games, and then soul adventure games. So, as you can probably tell, there's a lot that I had to go through here. So, oh god, sorry, it's been a bit of a busy day. I do apologize. But did the Game Awards actually nominate good choices? No. Mostly, unfortunately, no. So, but why do I say this? So, okay, let's talk about the games that, like, I do agree with being on here. Sekiro, or Sekiro, whatever you pronounce it. I think it's actually Sekiro. And then Control. I mean, I think it should be pretty obvious with Sekiro. It is a Souls game, or it's a Souls-born game, but it's not an RPG. Like, that's why it's actually not like, yeah, it's not actually technically an RPG. It is a straightforward action adventure game because there is no leveling in the game. It's your character with a goddamn sword, and you just go from there. So yeah, as far as, like, oh my god, fuck, I'm sorry, I keep yawning. So yeah, as far as this formula goes, yeah, no, like, this actually I would definitely nominate. So okay, ad's gonna happen, but whatever. Like, I'm just gonna be explaining shit. So yeah, like, as far as action adventure games, I do agree with this one being on here. Like, it's fun, like, it's challenging but rewarding, and is a really cool, Japanese aesthetic. Honestly, it's kind of weird because this game came out before Jedi Fallen Order and Ghost of Tsushima, yet it's basically the parent of those two games. I'm joking, but, like, like, it just kind of has, like, very similar things going on, just like those games. And I mean, truth be told, I think it's definitely a pretty good game. I played a little bit of it, but I had fun whenever I had it. It's definitely hard as fuck, though, but again, that's to be expected when it comes to a Soulsborne game, so I'm not entirely surprised there. And then we got Control, which, this is a Remedy game, so, of course, you got them going around here. And, well, this one's actually kind of a cool premise. It's a very similar premise to that of SCP, where they basically have to contain paranormal threats that break reality. And yeah, it's so damn cool. Like, it actually kind of surprises me that, I mean, okay, it's not I don't want to say surprising, but, like, I do think it's pretty cool that they were able to get this game going. Like, this is definitely a really, really damn cool game. So yeah, like, those, as far as, like, action adventure games go, I definitely do agree with those being on here. Everything else is a big no. Okay, so Resident Evil 2 and Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. I know those are good games, but they're remakes. Resident Evil 2 2019 was a phenomenal game. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this was in, like, the top of, like, most people's game of the years when it comes to this. Like, whenever it comes to, like, a lot of people's, like, top best game of 2019, a lot of people said Resident Evil 2 was definitely there. And here's the thing, like, I would want to agree with you guys because it is phenomenal. It is, honestly, it's definitely one of the better Resident Evil remakes um, that has been released. Um, but I guess my big issue is, well, like I said, it's a remake, first of all, and considering that we've already made a bunch of categories for other games in the past where, or well, future in this, like from these games perspectives, but just in the past episodes that we've done, it just wouldn't be fair to, have this be the winner for like game of the year. Which, yes, that is like, it shouldn't surprise you. I'm not going to nominate for game of the year because of that. So, but also, again, like, this game is really good, but I'm pretty sure there was like a couple of things that were missing from the original game that they never brought in here, or they completely removed it and then had to make you pay for it, which is fucking stupid. So yeah, like it's solid, but I don't know if I would say it's like top tier, if that makes sense. So I don't know, that's just me personally. And then as for Link's Awakening, same reason. Like, it's a solid remake of a classic from the Game Boy, but I don't know if I would say that like it's a top tier game. And again, it's a remake, so I don't know. It's just, yeah. And then let's talk about the games that, frankly, should probably not be on here, at least in the power of hindsight. Borderlands 3. This is a game that, I mean, okay, I'm admittedly very conflicted when it comes to Borderlands. I've always been. I've been pretty vocal about that. It's not a bad series, but first of all, it set a really bad trend in the mid 2010s for the whole looter shooter craze. But also, like, I just feel like a lot of the games just have a lot, like, it's a looter shooter, so it combines first person shooting with RPG elements. But I don't know, man. It's one of those games where it's like, it overstays its, okay, it's especially in this game's case. This game overstates its welcome. And this is also something I noticed about 2019 in general. 2019 was the year of the annoying twin characters. Oh my fucking god. Like, Far Cry New Dawn, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and Borderlands 3 in particular were so goddamn infuriating to like deal with because they had really annoying twin like either protagonists or antagonists in this case, and they easily just take you out of the fucking experience. Like, because I don't even remember their fucking names in this game. They're basically just like wannabe YouTube prank channel people, which, I mean, it was already kind of an outdated thing by 2019 because that shit was popular in 2015 and 2016. So, good job noticing a trend fucking 5 years later, Gearbox. So, like,
what a shame.
Yeah, that's so stupid. So yeah, no, I don't know. Just because and also, again, it's just like, even though like a lot of people, I think overall do like this game, Borderlands 2 is just the better game. It also has the better villain. Handsome Jack is objectively better than the fucking twins in this game, and I don't think most people would deny that. And then let's talk about Death Stranding. The most controversial game of 2019. So, and unfortunately, it also... God, I keep yawning. It also sparked some controversy with Kojima himself. So, I'll get to that in a little bit. But, yeah, this game you either loved this game or you fucking hated this game. I have not seen, like, anyone call this anything in between. So, because a lot of it, people who defend this game typically say that this is, one of the best games in terms of rich storytelling and environmental, environmental detailing, while people who despise this game basically describe it as a walking simulator where literally nothing happens and nothing of consequence happens. Admittedly, because of just how iffy this game is, that's why I'm not going to nominate it. But also, I respect my man Hideo Kojima. I played the original Metal Gear Solid back in September. I thought that game was fucking amazing. But he can be up his own ass a few times. Because let me see if I can find this quote that he made back in 2019 regarding to criticism. Oh, yeah. Death Stranding, quote-unquote, difficult to understand for Americans, suggests Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima has made some unlikely suggestions to explain Death Stranding's mixed reception, claiming only Europeans understand him. Hold on, let me look at the quote. Here's a quote from him. I have to say that the game received enthusiastic reviews, especially in Europe and Japan. Here in the United States, on the other hand, we had stronger criticism. Maybe this is a game that is difficult to understand for a certain type of critic or audience. Americans are big fans of first-person shooters, and Death Stranding is not. I always try to create new things, and disputes and discussions are fine, but it must be said that the Italians and the French have a different artistic sensibility that allows them to appreciate this kind of very original product. It's basically just saying, he's basically just, lumping in, like, people who are from America and basically just calling them stupid, which, by the way, actually, you can fuck off because of that, because, like, you're being an asshole if you're just, like, describing the whole. Also, you're best friends with fucking Norman Reedus. He's on the fucking cover of the game. You fucking you fucking hypocrite. Like, he's from America, right? Yeah, he's from Florida. Like, what the fuck? Like, who the fuck says that? Like, Americans, like, this game is, like, so difficult for Americans to understand. Fuck off. Actually, like, fuck off. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's honestly some of the most pretentious shit I've ever heard in a while. And you guys know how much I fucking despise pretentious shit like that. So, yeah, no. Fuck that mentality. And, yeah, fuck you for saying that. Because you're basically just, like, you're just saying that all Americans are fucking stupid. Which, I mean, to be fair, yeah, they're definitely not on the higher end. But saying all American, because that's what he's saying on the quote. You're just being a fucking dick at that point. So, yeah, no, I'm not nominating this game. Because of that controversy. And he got a lot of fucking flack. Rightfully so for it, too. Jesus Christ. So, okay, Sekiro is the game that won this, by the way. So, let's not chill. So, what did I end up nominating? Well, a few games that I'm actually surprised did not actually get nominated for this. Okay, I know there was a Best Action Game nominee, and Devil May Cry 5 won that, but as you guys know, I don't separate every single genre. I just combine action and adventure games together in one category. Therefore, Devil May Cry 5 is going to be nominated here. And valid because, it was a long-awaited sequel of the game from Devil May Cry 4 from back in 2008. And, well, it delivered. It revitalized the series, and frankly, this is definitely one of the best, if not, you can definitely argue this being the best Devil May Cry game, for sure. And yeah, it's just a lot of fucking fun. This is what should have happened back in 2013, where they decided to cancel the game originally, and it took us 11 years to get a new Devil May Cry game. Wait, hold on. No, there wasn't a game in 2013. No, there wasn't. No, come on. You gotta kid yourself. There's no game from 2013. What the hell are people talking about? Like, but yeah, all jokes aside, this game is fucking awesome. And then we got Plague Tale: Innocence. I understand why this was not nominated, because this was kind of an out of left field for this studio. Which, by the way, as a bit of a spoiler, I thought this was made by a studio that haven't been around and didn't make games that people didn't know. Well, let me remind you that A Plague Tale was actually made by a studio called Asobo. This is not their first game, and truth be told, they've been around since 2002. Yeah, they originally made a lot of licensed games throughout the 2000s and early 2010s. Hell, they even helped with The Crew, of all things. Okay. So, yeah, suffice to say, this isn't the first game they've ever made. And that's when I found out, and that's why I had to remove the, best game by new studio, because I thought this was a new studio game. Turns out, this is just one of the best games they ever made. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. But regardless, this is warranting of being on the list, in my opinion, as, it's more of a stealth game, it's an action adventure, and it's fun. It's more on the defensive side when it comes to that sort of stealth-based gameplay, but it's still fun regardless. So go check out Plague Tale: Innocence. And then we've got Bloodstained: Ritual of the Night, the spiritual successor to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, made by the same creator. So this whole Bloodstained thing was kind of a sort of a project by the original creator of that game, at least. I don't know if he was the original creator of the entire franchise of Castlevania or what have you, but this was sort of his way of trying to recapture the magic, let's just say. And yeah, it's pretty fun. Like, it has its problems. Like, I still wouldn't say that it's as good as Symphony of the Night, but as a, essentially like a rehashing of the game, it's actually pretty good. And, like, granted, it is in 3D, so it's not pixelated, but I still think that the way that they've done it was pretty good here. And then last but not least, this is where Jedi Fallen Order is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be in 2020's list. It's going to be in here for 2019. The fact that this was not nominated for 2019 is a criminal offense. So, here, this is where Jedi Fallen Order is. I played it back in 2020. It was a pretty awesome game. Very similar to Sekiro, except, it has a difficulty slider. So if you wanted to play it like any other hack and slash game, or really just action adventure game, you could. But if you wanted to play it like a Soulsborne game, you also could. So, and that's honestly, frank. If I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I know people are gonna give me shit for saying this, but this is why this game up here is a prime example that I use. That difficulty sliders don't make a game worse. So, yeah, fall in order. But anyways, let's get into what I ended up choosing for this. So the award for the best game of 2019 goes to Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. So I ultimately ended up choosing this game for a couple of reasons. So again, combat is as fluid as ever when it comes to Soulsborne games. This game is difficult, but it is very rewarding. Again, the aesthetics of the game being set in a feudal Japan setting, I think actually is pretty cool, especially since, I mean, we've been getting like a bit of a resurgence of, samurai games or like games set in Japan, and also there was the Neo games that came up before this, or well, the first Neo, I should say. But I like how there's been at least a shift more towards that aesthetic as opposed to a lot of the either gothic fantasy or medieval fantasy of a lot of other games. So to see a game go for that setting style, I think works way better in its favor, and it makes it stand out compared to the rest of its competition. And, well, truth be told, just like we've talked about with Elden Ring, this game actually helped evolve Soulsborne games as we know it, as this is the game that added in a lot of platforming and parkouring that you see in a lot of games like Assassin's Creed, which is pretty awesome, because most Soulsborne games before this, they were pretty straightforward in where you walked around. This game, you actually get to climb around rooftops and trees and shit, and it's pretty awesome. So that's my nod. It was a pretty hard choice. I'm gonna be honest, because most of any of those games we just talked about could have been here, but truth be told, I ultimately ended up just sticking to what they ended up winning because it was a good nominee, and I don't disagree. So there's that. All right, now let's get into the actual RPGs. So, well, kind of like 2022, this wasn't really the best year for RPGs. I mean, this wasn't a terrible year for RPGs, but it was just kind of more of a why year, like, you know. But did the Game Awards end up choosing good nominees? I mean, what else? What else do I need to say here? Like, literally, like, no. Okay. I think I need to address this first one. Final Fantasy XIV should not be allowed to be on here. I know that's the year that, the game finally had its big comeback after the fucking disastrous launch that it had back in 2010. And the fact that they had to rebuild the entire game in 2013. But I'm sorry, but you already had your chance. Sorry. So, yeah, because of that, in principle, I can't agree with this one. This game launched like shit whenever it did, and again, it's not even a game that came out in 2019. So, it only just finally blew up back in 2019 in response to what Blizzard was doing with all their fucking bullshit. So, yeah, no, hard disagree with this one. It shouldn't even be allowed to be on the list. Even though I know the game has gotten better, that doesn't warrant it winning for this year. It should only be for 2010. At the beginning of the decade, not the end. So, yeah, no. And then another one, let's get this one also out of the way as well. Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Yeah, it's a fucking awesome DLC, but it's a DLC. It's not a new game. So naturally, it wouldn't count for this either. I've already explained my sort of mixed feelings about Disco Elysium. It's like, I don't know if I like the game or I don't. So that's ultimately what it boils down to. And then, oh boy, I'm gonna get crucified with these next hot takes. So, okay, well this. Okay, let's talk about Outer Worlds first. This one's not a surprise. I didn't like the game personally. I've talked about this one plenty of times before, where it's like, I don't like the aesthetics, because like this was made by Obsidian, the creators of Fallout New Vegas, and well, made by a lot of ex-developers of the original Fallout games. This is sort of their imagining of what they would have wanted to do with that universe if they had their way. But as you guys know, I hate Fallout. I already expressed that at the beginning of the stream. I don't like the aesthetics. I don't like that sort of retro futuristic style with a lot of the weird, creepy 1950s, 60s like caricature drawings. Like I've always hated that shit. I find it creepy. Like, so, but like in an uncomfortable way. So no thanks. I know it's not the entirety of the game, but it's what was marketed, and the fact that that's the most prevalent stuff in the game is kind of annoying. So, no thanks. But let's talk about Kingdom Hearts. So, I'm sorry. Okay. I remember back in like 2017, I think. So like Kingdom Hearts 3 was already announced by then. It didn't come out. But like, and the most recent like bundle of all like the older games like dropped at the time, and I rented it because my friend Saimori, he loves Kingdom Hearts. Like, that's one of his favorite series of all time. But then I played the first game, and I was like, man, this is aged poorly. And I felt so bad, because he was right fucking there with me, too. And I was not having a grand time, like, at all. I was just... Oh my god. Like, this... So, yeah, like... I'm sorry, man. Like, okay, to be fair, that was 7 years ago. Maybe, just maybe, I was just having a bad time, because that is admittedly a pretty common thing with me, is that I end up playing games just kind of with a bad mentality, and I end up hating the game afterwards. So, like, maybe it was just because I was just not clicking with it quite yet. I don't know. So I will give Kingdom Hearts 1 a chance. Oh, and also it's because, frankly, another reason why I just didn't really get into this is because the lore is way too fucking convoluted. Like, it's no surprise that, like, you know, with a series like Kingdom Hearts, there's like a lot of like lore videos out there, and like the order of the games is confusing, and it's only gotten more, like, it only just got like unnecessarily convoluted because there were tons of sequels and prequels made, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, just actually, you know, tell a more consistent story, or don't make every game required for you to understand what the fuck is going on. So again, I don't remember if I talked about this in our video game franchise tier list, but I think I did, and frankly, I did not vibe, because it's too convoluted for the sake of being convoluted. It's the same problem with a series like FNAF. So, yeah, and unlike something like Zelda, which I know I've been referencing Zelda a lot this whole series, I know, and I've only played like the first 2 games on stream, but my point is, at least with this comparison, like, I just also realized I'm also doing an AVGN because he fucking compares everything to Zelda all the time as well. But anyways, but the difference between this and Zelda is that at least with Zelda, every game is self-contained, meaning you can play most of the games except for Majora's Mask and Tears of the Kingdom. Those are the only two. Don't worry. But like, every other game is self-contained. So you can play Twilight Princess without having to have played Ocarina of Time, without having to have played Link to the Past. And you're fine. So yeah. No. Suffice to say, these all are bad choices in my opinion. Or okay, let me rephrase that. 3 bad choices and then 2 iffy choices. So what ended up winning? Disco Elysium, because again, like I said, that was the game that game journalists were jerking off to, whether it was justified or not. So, what did I end up choosing? Well, this was kind of a tough one, because this year was not particularly great. But, as you see, I ended up choosing Children of Morta, just by barely though. But then I've also decided, because I think I have to explain the first one because I know a lot of people are going to be very confused. So, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. So, the first Division game, I actually streamed the original Division on my YouTube channel back in 2018. And I even beat the game. Twice. I know, I'm a very unfortunate soul. I mean, admittedly, the Division 1 is more of a guilty pleasure. It's not a good game, but I like the gunplay, and I like the sort of snowy New York. It's a guilty pleasure. I admit that. But then I went over into the Division 2. At least a little bit. And I'm not gonna lie, it's objectively actually a decent game. Dare I say, it's one of the better looter shooters to have ever been made. I know that's surprising because you wouldn't think that the Division would actually be a competent game, but no, the Division 2 actually is unironically a good game. Granted, it's bare minimum as far as like what I would consider to be a good game, especially when it comes to something that is an RPG. But yeah, no, I would actually unironically nominate this. Like, I'll even fucking say this, and I don't care if this gives me shit. This is a better game than the fucking Destiny games. There. I fucking said it. You can go after me now.
What a shame.
Yeah, I know. I know you fucking tryhards fucking love it when you get, like, your DLC removed from, like, you know, permanently, even if you paid for it, but okay. So, yeah, I know that's a huge hot take, but I actually do, especially, like I said, the fact that Destiny 2 removed paid content from the game, but Destiny 1 and Division 1 and Division 2, they didn't do that. Making those objectively better than Destiny 2. I don't want to fucking hear from people. Like, once you fucking remove content that people paid for, then, like, that's when you get on my shit list. So, at least Ubisoft didn't do that. Unfortunately, this was the last good Ubisoft game that was made, which is pretty sad. Or at least last game I would competently say was good until Blotch Crown. So, that's pretty sad for Ubisoft, because... yeah, alright, but anyways, let's get into the other options. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. This one, okay, Fire Emblem as a series is more, it's an RPG / tactical strategy game, hybrid series, so it counts. And But like it's an RPG, so I'm nominating it here. And like I said, truth be told, it's okay. There's better Fire Emblem games, but it's solid enough. Last but not least, we've got actually a surprise sleeper hit right here. Greedfall. This game came out of nowhere. And it's actually surprisingly really good too. You might think with this cover, oh, it's another Soulsborne game. It's not a Soulsborne. Like, it's actually a more traditional RPG. But the world is so fucking cool. So fucking cool. But no, like, seriously though, like the aesthetics with this game, it has an aesthetic similar to that of like what's called the early modern period. Basically, like, think like the Renaissance up until like the American Revolution. Which is something I've talked about, I think, in one of these previous episodes. But it sort of has a sort of 17th, early 18th century aesthetic mixed with like a high/dark fantasy tone, which is a really cool mix. So yeah, it did the whole thing that New World really wanted to do, but 2 years prior, and it's not a subscription RPG, and it has way better combat and all that fun stuff. So yeah, no, I would actually recommend you guys get this, as well as its expansion, because it came with an expansion. So actually genuinely solid. And it's actually, what makes it even more sad is that I'm pretty sure this is this studio's best game. Let me check. And also, this game got confirmed for a sequel. It got greenlit for a sequel that's coming out next year. Yeah, it's Spiders. That's the studio name. Yeah, they made Steel Rising, which Steel Rising's not a terrible game, but like, yeah, it wasn't anything that like a lot of people were saying was like in like the 10th degree. Yeah, and they also made the Technomancer and of Orcs and Men, which would eventually make the Styx games. So yeah, like they have a very dicey repertoire of games, but they were able to make it with 2019 somehow. I don't know how, but Greedfall is the one game that they have, and they took stride with it. But let's actually get into the winner. So the nominee, or the winner of the best RPG of 2019 is, yeah, the award goes to, I'm supposed to say it like that, Greedfall. I'm just as shocked as you guys. But again, this game isn't reinventing the wheel. We've seen plenty of RPGs like this before, but it's just a fun experience. Again, it's a surprise hit from a studio that has a very dicey repertoire to begin with, but it's carried not only because of its, rewarding mechanics and progression, but also its very unique sort of post-Renaissance aesthetic. Has tons of content, and has a really enjoyable gameplay loop. So this is a bit of a reach of a pick. I do admit you can definitely make a case that some of the other choices would have been better, but for me personally, this is just an aesthetic that I love and a gameplay loop that I prefer. So therefore, I'm going to have Greedfall be the winner here. So it's probably the least safe option out of this entire list. So, all right, best shooter game. So, of course, the Game Awards rarely, if not ever, they do not do shooter game categories. So this one ultimately was up to me. But truth be told, this was actually a good enough year for shooter games, I would say. And I would confidently say that this year, while not like an amazing year like 2007, it was still actually a pretty good year overall for shooter games. But let's get into the actual nominees. A couple of which people are going to massively disagree with me on, but I'll explain those. So here's the list. So let's go over the ones that I think people would definitely agree with. Again, a medieval is on here as well, and I definitely think that again, it's a sleeper hit that I think with the release of its DLC from last year, it got more recognition. So yeah, good solid game. Good. Yeah. And then we've got Metro Exodus, which we talked about a little bit last time. So again, this is another game that was a bit of a long-winded sequel, not as long as Devil May Cry 4 to 5. Like, this was only about like 6 years. This game, I think, was originally supposed to come out in 2016, but it kept getting delayed several times until it finally released in 2019. And yeah, no, I definitely do think that this is a good contender for best shooter game. I mean, this is sort of the more post-apocalyptic aesthetic that I prefer when it comes to my shooter games. Sort of a more rustic, I guess you can kind of say that this is kind of a loose World War II, like if like World War II ended up being the apocalypse kind of thing. Like that's kind of the aesthetic I get with Metro. Is that it's like an offshoot from like that as opposed to Fallout, which was like an offshoot of the Cold War. That's kind of the vibe I get with Metro. And with this game, I definitely can agree with people that this is the best game in the series, like bar none. So, and also added in a lot of cool things like, weapon customization and all that fun stuff. So I definitely do agree with Metro Exodus being on here. And another game that is from a smaller studio, but really packs a punch, is Ion Fury, which was this one's kind of an interesting one. This game runs off the Build engine, which was the engine that was used to power whenever we played Duke Nukem and Blood. And yeah, those two games, same engine as this. So yeah, because of that, this game is as throwback as you can get when it comes to throwback shooters. So, while like the actual environments are 3D, everything else is 2D. So weapon models, character models, interactable stuff, those are all 3D. Or not 3D, 2D. And yeah, it's just a solid, throwback retro shooter. And it's funny because this actually, a lot of people didn't know this. I didn't even know this, but this was actually a sequel to a game that came out in 2016. Or not a sequel, a prequel to a game that came out in 2016. Problem is that game sucked ass. So the devs decided to do it again, but this time make it a first-person shooter instead of a Diablo ripoff. Or at least I think it was a Diablo ripoff, but whatever. And basically was like, okay, let's just make this Duke Nukem, but like cool. And they did, and this game's pretty solid. I would definitely recommend both this and a medieval if you guys are interested in games like Doom or Quake. So, big thumbs up for me. And then we got Hunt Showdown, a game that I've talked about for years, yet I haven't been able to stream it for you guys because of its freaking file size. This game is so cool. Like, man. Like, as far as game premises go, this is one of the best. Because it's a first-person shooter set in, like, the post-Civil War, like, Louisiana, right? And you basically play as a bounty hunter who's after a bunch of targets, but they're like witchcraft. Like they're basically like dark magic targets, and you also fight like zombies and a bunch of giant monsters, all while you try to find and take this thing, whatever, like this bounty, while other players are going after you and the bounty as well. Like, it's such a cool and unique premise. Granted, to be fair, this is a part of a subgenre of shooter games called extraction shooters. As a matter of fact, I played one back last year whenever I was at TwitchCon. I think it was called Extinction or whatever. I think it was called. Like, it was a game that I'm pretty sure was in early access. Not Extinction. Fuck. No. Okay. Let me look it up. But basically, it's basically a type of shooter game where, it's kind of like a battle royale, but it's different. Like it's more, instead of it being like PvP with like tons of teams battling it out each other to the death. There's an actual objective to this. And there's also a ton of enemies on the map. And given that this game takes place in the 19th century, where a lot of these weapons just, have been used in literally like, at the, at the very latest since like the 1950s or 60s, because keep in mind, a lot of these guns are from the 1870s and 1880s. They were kind of anachronistic because this game takes place in the 1870s, I believe. Hell, they have like a Mauser C96, despite the fact that this game takes place in like 1874, I think. But whatever, we can ignore that. But yeah, no, like that to me is pretty cool. And unlike something like a battle royale, I don't get like annoyed playing a game like this. Granted, this is definitely a game that is way better with friends, though. So, Marauders, I think that was the game, right? Yes, Marauders, that was the game. Sorry, I just couldn't think of it. Was it in early access, or... No. Well, shit about my 2022 list. Fuck. Okay, whatever. We'll get to... Again, I'm going to be redoing a lot of these lists, like, probably. But anyways, so yeah. Game's fucking awesome. I would definitely check it out if you're more on the multiplayer, if you're more into, like, multiplayer games. And then we've got the two games that I feel like people are going to be kind of iffy with me about, but I'm going to defend myself. So, Gears 5. So, okay, granted, I know this from what I heard, this game's not as bad as Gears 4. At least when it comes to the consensus with Gears of War fans. But to me, this, like, the newer games, they aren't as offensive to me as the newer Halo games. Newer as in Halo 4, 5, and Infinite. Because, well, I mean, first of all, I don't feel blatantly disrespected because I fucking love Halo. So, this doesn't offend me personally as much compared to those games. But also, this feels more just kind of a natural evolution of what the Gears of War games would eventually be anyways. I mean, Marcus, he's gotta pass the torch somehow. And I think this is definitely one of the best ways they could have done it. Granted, I know this isn't as action heavy as the other Gears of War games. That's fine. It's the series evolving and maturing with its audience, as opposed to just, it just being a game that is blatantly just about the gore and, shooting and shit. Like, this game takes its time, and I appreciate that. It's the same approach that Uncharted: A Thief's End did. So, I think that's actually pretty touching. And even if this isn't like the final game in the Gears of War series, I guarantee you there's going to be more games. I mean, Gears Tactic obviously came out the year later, but that's a spin-off, but whatever. That's fine. So, and yeah, like, I genuinely do appreciate that. So, that's my take. So, why am I also nominating Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019? Well, here's the thing. Modern Warfare 2019, I know this game gets a lot of fucking shit. Specifically with a lot of people who are just kind of more casually with the game. But here's something. This one is actually a bit of a controversial take, but like of even just being on here. But here's the thing about this game. This game, like a lot of people that I know online, or just a lot of people who, you know, just shit on Call of Duty. Like specifically, like I notice a lot of YouTubers, they shit on Call of Duty a lot, saying that the game is just rehashed over and over and over again. I don't entirely just like agree with a lot of that sentiment, but I understand where they're coming from because let's be real here, Call of Duty for a good time was kind of getting stale. And then they did the advanced movement games and people didn't like that either, including myself. And so this game set itself to actually innovate while being able to please, you know, both casual and hardcore fans. And truth be told, it was able to do that. It has a fucking awesome campaign. And I like Spec Ops. I know Spec Ops was broken when it came out, but I still like Spec Ops overall. Survival was also pretty fun in this. Even if it wasn't like MW3's Survival, I still think that this game was still able to do it well enough. And I mean, okay, multiplayer, I will admit, it is hit or miss at points. But because this game helped bring in the gunsmith, as well as actually innovate by bringing in both the ground war battle maps as well as the fire team or firefight, like the small like 1v1 and 2v2 maps. That's innovation right there. Like, as well as like the different movement stances and, you know, bringing back leaning, which I know a lot of people are very contentious about the leaning. Granted, you know, it's not like leaning like it is in PC, where it's like you just press a button. You actually have to be on a ledge. But yeah, and also nerfing specialists to where they're more just a passive buff rather than just a straight up offensive weapon. That's innovation, people! Like, again, like, granted, even though this and Cold War ended up being just kind of lightning in a bottle, and truth be told, the games that have come out since, they have been pretty either god-awful or mediocre at best. Like, you have to at least admit that, like, whether or not you love or despise the game, you can't deny that this game was fundamentally different than most other Call of Duty games. As a matter of fact, in some sections, it even leans more towards the tactical. It leaned more towards the tactical shooter market in some points, especially with the nighttime missions that are in the campaign. So, which, by the way, I am not playing I am not playing this game's campaign. It's way too fucking risky for the type of content that I'm here. If I couldn't even handle Max Payne, you bet I can't, like, fucking stream this. So, but it's a good campaign. Easily one of the best in the series. So, but yeah, no, you can hate me all you want, and you can hate this game all you want as well, but you can't deny that this game helped push at least a few things for the better. And also, this game also was finally the game that brought in both cross progression and free updates. I rest my case. But what did I ended up choosing? Oh, sorry, I thought I heard something. So, the award for the best shooter game of 2019 goes to Metro Exodus. I mean, this one, again, this was actually a close one, a bit closer than you would think. But I ultimately ended up choosing Metro Exodus because, again, this was kind of another long-awaited sequel that fulfilled a lot of people's personal, wishes with this. Again, the awesome premise and style helps, but again, this game also helped innovate with tons of customization options for your weapons, and making this more of a quasi-open world experience actually helped it. It made it feel more like a stalker game in several ways, but a really enjoyable soccer game. And yeah, it's just fun. Well, it helps that, the developers originally worked on Stalker before making the Metro games. So, yeah, no, as far as, that's concerned, yeah. But yeah, let's talk about sim and strategy games. Another category that had a really good year. This year had a ton of really awesome simulation and strategy games. So, yeah, and frankly, honestly, I would say this was one of the best years for that category, which is surprising considering that, I feel like the 2020 so far has been really god-awful or just mediocre when it comes to this category. Seriously, this category took a beating, after this. But yeah, no, this year was a really good year for this category. Did the sorry. Did the Game Awards recognize that? Actually, yes. Oh shoot. Okay, that's also not supposed to say that. I don't know why that's saying that. Okay, well, that never ended up getting fixed, did it? Okay, I'm gonna fix that next time. But actually, yes. What the hell? Sorry, noise. But yeah, no, actually, yes, they ended up granted, the winner is not the best. It's not the worst. So technically, this isn't a Hoodie-itis situation, because if it was Wargroove, that would have been the worst choice, and that definitely would have been Hoodie-itis. Because, no. I mean, Fire Emblem Three Houses, I know why they chose it. It's because they want to give the nod to a Nintendo game, because Nintendo wasn't really a thing. And again, it's a good game, but I feel like it's a better RPG than a strategy game, if that makes sense. So, yeah, spoiler alert, I did not end up choosing Fire Emblem. God damn it, I mistyped that. This is a bad night tonight. I apologize, everyone. But as far as the other choices are concerned, yeah, no, these are all good choices. Tropico 6 was a nice return for a series that hadn't had a new game in a while, because the last game was Tropico 5, which came out back in 2014. And while this game it didn't reinvent the wheel for the series, as far as city builders go, hell yeah, I would definitely recommend it. As a matter of fact, it's actually become my friend Goldie's favorite game to just play as of late. This, yeah, Tropico 6 has just been his game right now. And for good reason, because of just, again, it didn't necessarily reinvent the wheel, but it just added a lot of quality of life stuff that the previous game didn't really have. So yeah, and also, again, it's the Tropico series. again, another game series I haven't freaking played yet for you guys, but it's just like there's not really a bad game in this series. Like, truth be told, I think the worst game is probably the second one, but even then, it's actually still a decent game. Like, the only reason why that's like weaker is because, it's an older game. But if like your worst game is just because of its age, that's a really good sign for your franchise. So, and it's also surprising that they haven't made like a Tropico 7 yet. So, just watch. They're going to drop it at some point later this year. So, yeah, as I fucking, say it. But yeah, no, Tropico 6, good job. And also Anno 1800, another surprise hit from Ubisoft this year. I know it wasn't Ubisoft who made the game, it was publishing it, but like, yeah, this is another solid like city builder. And well, a return to form for a series that was kind of dipping a little bit, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, Anno 1404 was a phenomenal game in its own right. Being set in the Middle Ages, kind of Renaissance. Basically during the Age of Discovery, or it simulating that, right? And well, the thing is that the games that came after that, 2070 and 2205, as you can tell by the date, like the subtext is the year that it's revolved around. So, yeah, they tried to go in the future, which I'm personally not against because there's not really that many like city builders to begin with, let alone sci-fi city builders. I thought that 2070 was fine. 2205, on the other hand, was a bit buggy when it came out, and it didn't really work all that well. So yeah, and it's considered a black sheep in the Anno community. But then 1800 came out, returned to a historical setting, and go check this game out. It's so much fun. Like, especially if you want to build like a city that's kind of set during the Industrial Revolution. Like, it's pretty fun. I know I already said that, but like, honestly, like, as far as like, competition franchises are concerned, this was a pretty good year for both Tropico and Anno, as far as like, because they're both competitors between each other because they're both city builders. Yeah, pretty good. And then, of course, Total War 3 Kingdoms. This goes without saying. Most Total War games, they're going to win. Though, Three Kingdoms is a bit of a tough one. I don't think it's the best game in the entire series. That's for damn sure. I think it's a bit overrated in that sense. But I do think that this is a good Total War game. For sure. And I can see the nod. So, it's no Shogun 2, but like, it's respectable enough. It's way more respectable than fucking Troy and Thrones of Britannica, that's for sure. So yeah. And then we got Age of Wonders Planetfall, which like we talked about Age of Wonders 4. We nominated it. Pretty cool. And Planetfall, this one's weird because Age of Wonders is more of a fantasy based one. This was the first one that really leaned into the sci-fi elements. And as far as like a sci-fi spin-off where Age of Wonders is concerned, especially when it comes to like, turn-based like grand strategy games like this, pretty solid. So, easy recommendation, I would say. And that is why the only ones that I would remove is Fire Emblem, mostly because, again, that one's more of an RPG. As well as, and also I nominated it for RPG. Again, sim strategy games, there's so many good ones. Hell, I couldn't get every single one of them on the list. Because, again, I can only have up to 6 on here. And then, yeah, that other choice, no. So, I ended up doing fucking hell. Yeah. This is how you know this was rushed. I'm actually flabbergasted. I know I used that word. That Ace Combat 7 was not nominated for Best Sim Strategy Game. Is it because it's a flight sim? Technically. Like, it's not really. I think that's probably why. It's because this is more of a, I guess, a more traditional, like, fighting, like, more, like, arcade flight game. I think that might be why. But, like, that shouldn't discourage from it getting a nod somewhere. Because, yeah, this game's pretty fun. So, I mean, if you guys remember, I played Ace Combat 4. I had a lot of fun with it. And, well, since then, I've taken the time to do a bit more research and check out some of the other games. And, yeah, Ace Combat 7 is a pretty decent time. Like, I would definitely recommend it to you guys. So, again, it's not a game that, like, is... I mean, okay, maybe this is the best game in the series? I mean, there's tons of content made for the game. There was a ton of DLC that was released. Not too much. Like, it's not like a fucking Microsoft Flight Simulator situation here. But like, this game definitely has a lot of content, like, with it. And yeah, it's definitely fun to go back. Like, it's definitely a good time. But then last but not least, with fucking Zoo, man. Planet fucking Zoo, man. Like, what the fuck? Like, Planet Zoo is fun. Like, especially since, like, there's, like, Zoo... Okay. I'm getting excited because this game reminds me of Zoo Tycoon, and anyone who knows the hell Zoo Tycoon is, you're the man, because those games were pretty awesome until Microsoft fucked it up in 2013, but we don't talk about that. So yeah, I like to see... And again, this is made by the same developers who eventually made Planet Coaster, which, as far as a spiritual successor to the old Roller Coaster Tycoon games is concerned, that game is really awesome. Granted, you definitely, if you want to make anything extravagant, you definitely need to take your time. And to be fair, that's kind of the same case with this game. But, you know, this is like something that we haven't seen in a long time, let alone one that was, you know, done well. So, yeah, no, like, Planet Zoo, like, if you want to simulate a zoo business, because ultimately, let's be real here, zoos are still businesses after all, whether you want to admit it or not. It is kind of sad, and I know about all the ethics about animals being in a zoo, but I see it more as, you know, for the preservation of certain species that unfortunately are becoming a bit on the chopping block, especially considering with stuff like climate change and, you know, ecosystems being destroyed, you know, throughout like decade after decade. It is important to have these species at least somewhere where they won't get destroyed, because again, unfortunately, there are parts of the world where these species used to live that aren't sustainable for them anymore. So, now that being said, if you are an abusive zoo, then yeah, you get fuck off. I'm never gonna go to them. Granted, I haven't actually been to a zoo in a long time, like, which is weird. Like, I think the last time I was at a zoo was like, honestly, like, not 8 or 9 years ago. It's been a long time. So, and no, I'm not counting Animal Kingdom from Disney. Like, it's a theme park that's zoo themed. It's not a zoo proper. Though, yeah. So, yeah, like, as far as like a zoo proper, yeah, I haven't been to one in nearly a decade, which is kind of sad because I like seeing like cool animals. But let's get into the winner. So, the award for the best simulation/strategy game of 2019 goes to motherfucking Planet Zoo. I had to give in. I had to concede because Planet Zoo is something that was needed. A modern zoo, like I know it's a niche, it's a huge niche, but this was something that was just not a thing for like I said, like 16 years by this point. Again, I know there was the 2013 game, like Zoo Tycoon game, but that game sucked. Like, sorry, I keep hearing a bunch of static. Like, that's actually kind of concerning me. But anyways, so yeah, like as far as like zoo, like games of the zoo are concerned, yeah, this is something that was kind of needed because, you know, like business simulation games just aren't. Admittedly, part of it is because they aren't as popular as they were back in the early to mid 2000s. So, which is a kind of a sad thing to think about, but this is an example on how you do it right. And also, it's a solid follow-up to the previous Planet game, Planet Coaster, which is a game that we played, by the way, I just remembered. And yeah, there's tons of options that you have here. And the game, this is honestly still a very beautiful game. Like, obviously at full settings, but like, even then, like, oh my god, like this game is such a visual masterpiece in places. Like, it almost looks like real life. And this is a game of 5 years ago and it still looks this damn good. So, yeah. Planet Zoo. It's fucking Zoo, man. Like, you gotta nominate Zoo. It's great. So, alright. Before we get into the best, before we get into this, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna get a drink because my throat is starting to hurt. So, yeah, I'll be right back. All right, we're back. So, okay, I think we're over halfway done now, so that's cool. Yeah, I just needed a bit of a drink. All right, best multiplayer game. So, the past several years were pretty bad that we talked about. The early 2020 picks, all just awful lists. Did the nominations get better? Like, are they actually somewhat decent for 2019? Still no. I mean, it's better, but like not by much. Like, again, I already explained my thing with Borderlands 3, so that goes without saying. Modern Warfare and Division 2, I actually do agree with. Which is why this one's a little bit better, because there's at least 2 choices that I actually do agree with. And then, okay, the next one, Tetris 99. Okay, I'm just gonna be. This is gonna sound weird coming from me, but like, Tetris is kind of a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. Like, I don't know. Like, it's the most simplest, basic game out there. It's the most casual game like ever. Like, I get that. But I actually do kind of like playing Tetris. As a matter of fact, like on my Super Nintendo. Yeah, this thing. Obviously, like I've been pretty vocal. I've modded this. I actually really like playing shit like NES Tetris on here, or like Tetris Attack from like '96. I don't know. I like playing Tetris. It's such a basic game. Shit, I'll even fucking say this. I think like Tetris World gets a bit too much shit. Tetris World is from the PlayStation 2. Because I know a lot of people say that that's one of the worst versions of Tetris. I don't agree with that sentiment at all. I don't know. It's just like kind of basic fun. It's a guilty pleasure. I still would not nominate it for best multiplayer game. Yeah, no. I mean, I get the concept. It's basically just Tetris Battle Royale, I guess. But no, it just kind of blew up for like a month, and then everyone kind of forgot about it. And well, truth be told, I don't even think you can play this anymore, can you? Because I know they shut down F-Zero 99. I'm pretty sure they did it with Tetris 99 as well. Although to be fair, with F-Zero, 99, that one actually made more sense because, well, it's a racing game, and that's pretty awesome to have 99, got like things like racing like that. But yeah, I can't, I can't in good faith put Tetris as the best multiplayer game. Like, that's just weird. All right, and then last but not least, we got Apex Legends. Fuck no. As the game that killed the Titanfall series and basically sold their souls to, the Battle Royale thing, and yeah, no, I can't in good conscience do this. And again, you guys already know I fucking hate Battle Royale, and this is an example of a game that literally killed a franchise. Like, we're never gonna get a Titanfall. We're never gonna get a Titanfall 3 because of this game. Ever. Which is an even bigger shame because you can't even play Titanfall 2 anymore because some fucking shithead DDoS bombed the fucking servers back in 2021. Meaning the only way you can play it is by downloading a North Star client for the PC version. The console versions are absolutely unplayable, which is pathetic and sad. So, fuck no, this is not gonna win, for this. But unfortunately, well, you guys know how this goes. It won, so, Hoodie-itis strikes again. Literally the worst choice out of this list won. So, which, by the way, that's every year. Every year so far, there's been at least one instance of Hoodie-itis. Every fucking year. Again, this is why I do the show, because it's this is clearly, no, this made more sense at the time, but guess what? Over time, Apex's numbers have been kind of, either stagnated or declined. And it doesn't help that, like I said, this game literally killed the series of one of the best first person shooters to ever to have been made in a long time. So no, this is depressing to see on my screen. So yeah, hell no, not winner, not a winner, not a chance. So you know what I ended up choosing? So, Hunt Showdown, where the fuck was this game back in 2019? I need to know, because this is the objectively better option. If you want a game that's kind of like a battle royale, but is a bit more forgiving with that, as this game has the it's an extraction shooter, so there's tons of bot enemies that are roaming around the map, and you want something that is also more skill based, because Apex Legends has the specialist characters, which is something I always despise when games have. Yeah, no, this is an easier slam dunk of a game. So, yeah, and then I chose Mordhau mostly because, again, this game is a bit more on the it's more on the hack and slash side of things as opposed to shooter side, but I still think that it's warranted of a nod. So, yeah, so at the end of the day, yeah. Sorry, I was just looking at something. So yeah, I would definitely nominate it. And like I said, Modern Warfare 2019, love it or hate it, it was innovative for that franchise. And again, Division 2, the last developed and published Ubisoft game in 5 years, which is kind of sad. So, all right, let's go over the winner. It should be pretty obvious what game I'm gonna choose. The award for the best multiplayer game goes to Hunt Showdown. It's obvious. I've talked about this game non-stop on the channel. I've not streamed it yet, but of course, it has a unique premise for a shooter game. It's high risk, high reward. The weaponry, again, since this game takes place in the late 19th century, it has a very unique arsenal of weapons that can only be seen in a game like Red Dead Redemption. So that's pretty cool. And frankly, this game has, at least to my knowledge, one of the least toxic communities as far as a big multiplayer community is concerned. It's definitely no Dead by Daylight. I spelled community wrong. Jesus Christ, this was a fucking terrible thing. Okay, whatever. But yeah, as far as games are concerned, in my opinion, this is the best extraction shooter. I know there's some people who are diehards when it comes to something like Tarkov, but to me personally, I think Hunt Showdown is still a phenomenal game that you guys should definitely check out. I highly recommend it. So, all right. Best DLC/expansion. This was kind of a tough one, admittedly. This was another tough one because 2019, there was some cool, small, DLC from some games that I liked, but I didn't feel comfortable, not, giving them the nod. So, this is what I ended up choosing. So, Civilization 6, Gathering Storm, Hearts of Iron 4, Man the Guns, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, The Fate of Atlantis, and, of course, Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So, Civ 6 needs no introduction. Everyone knows what Civilization is. It's considered by many to be the best strategy game series of all time. I'm more of a Total War person, but I do respect the Civilization games. And, well, this was kind of more of a... I guess, okay, this added, a few, new, civilizations, right? I'm just gonna remind myself what this exactly added. So... Yeah, okay, yeah, this was the second expansion for the game, or at least the second big expansion. So, okay, well, it should be pretty obvious. Yeah, natural disasters. This added natural disasters that affected the actual base of the game, of like what your game was going through, and it also added a few new civilizations and traits and all that fun stuff. And yeah, like it definitely is game like especially since like Civilization as a series is pretty static overall as far as like, the map. It's cool to see that they decided to make an expansion sort of going outside of that and making it to where there's something that is natural that does affect the gameplay. So, yeah, good job. All right, manned guns. This added in some new tree. I forgot what trees this was. I should know because I own this DLC. Like, God, like it's funny because like I own all the DLC that you see on like this list here. Yeah, okay, it's naval obviously, so like it adds in like some more like naval options for all of the factions in the game, but it also added in some new stuff for um yeah, so like this added in like oh, okay. Okay, yeah. This added in like new character like new tech trees for both America and the UK. And then yeah, it added in like a bunch of yeah, like stuff like naval treaties and basically just a lot of like stuff involving being on the seas and like battling out in the seas, as well as like adding new content for the US and the UK. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And like especially since like the US and UK, like their original tech trees, they kind of play out like they do in real life anyways, regardless of what you chose. So to see one where you can actually alter their ideology as well as just the amount of stuff that they gain over time, that's pretty cool to see, especially for, two of like the big powers in the in like, Hoi 4 and World War II, of course, since this is a World War II game. And then we've got Assassin's Creed Odyssey, The Fate of Atlantis. So, okay, Odyssey I feel like gets a lot of shit. I understand because it's not really an Assassin's Creed game, or at least a traditional Assassin's Creed game. I get it. It's an RPG. It's not a stealth game. This place looks really fucking cool though. This whole area in general is so fucking cool. Because yeah, like you literally go to Atlantis and you sort of explore there, and there's tons of new weapons, new enemies. You fight some of the gods, which, granted, to be fair, they don't go as far as like the Anubis boss fight in Assassin's Creed Origins. Cause Anubis is fucking sick. Like that's one of the best boss fights in any game, and I will stand by that. But like as far like this one, I think it has Poseidon. Is that the boss like of this? So like it's not a spoiler that you fight the boss. Like that's been known, but like that's pretty cool. Like the fact that you get to fight that like and explore like Atlantis in a very unique part of the game, which admittedly otherwise is a pretty samey game, at least compared to Origins, where at least with Origins, yeah, it takes place in Egypt, but there's also the Greek parts and the Roman parts. AC Odyssey is pretty samey. All like for a bunch of it, you're either on the seas or you're on like a Greek island with like a temple. This added a bit more literal and metaphorical depth in the sense that you're literally going into like an underwater city, and that's pretty awesome. So yeah, and then of course we got Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which is kind of what Sunbreak was kind of being like the opposite of with Rise. whereas that expansion focused on being in a jungle and it was kind of warm climate themed. This one is obviously a bit more frost themed, and it works just like what the other expansion did with Monster Hunter Rise, where this was very cool. Like, this was really aesthetically pleasing with its theme taking place in sort of like a frosty locale. The new enemies were pretty cool and the bosses were awesome. Like, honestly, I would definitely say that it's definitely a close call between Fate of Atlantis and Iceborne for sure. So you can definitely make your picks there. But of course, you all know the drill. We can only pick one. And so the award for the best DLC/expansion of 2019 goes to... This is a close call, by the way. AC Odyssey, The Fate of Atlantis. This was a pretty close one, but considering that we gave the nod to Sunbreak, I just felt like this was like the one that was a bit better. And also, this game, this similar to like us giving the nod to SB Ruin for 2023, this helped sort of, break the balance of just some of the problems that this game had by, giving us a really awesome locale, a lot of mysteries being solved within like the newer Assassin's Creed games that weren't necessarily being, addressed. They were addressed here. And this is the most important part. This game, this expansion actually respects your time. It's not them making the excuse of prolonging the game so that they can promote their time savers. Like, thankfully, this expansion is the perfect length. So I think this expansion's about like 10, 15-ish hours. So like not long at all compared to... So I know that sounds long, but keep in mind, this is an RPG that we're talking about. So like something that's that length, that's actually pretty good. So yeah, that's kind of, in my opinion, the best DLC/expansion from this year. So again, Iceborne was really close, but because Sunbreak already, then yeah. All right, best remake/remaster. This is where some of those games we talked about earlier get their awards at, because again, they aren't fully original games. But there's also a few games I wanted to bring mention to as well. So this is where Resident Evil 2 and Link's Awakening are going to battle it out with each other. Because, again, Resident Evil 2 is a phenomenal remake of a classic that did truly, put Resident Evil on the map. Resident Evil 1, back in the day, of course, was respected, but it kind of aged. Resident Evil 2, I still think it has aged, but like it's aged a bit better because of its locale. Like, because, well, actually, it is a very unique locale. It takes place in like an abandoned like an overrun police station, which, I mean, there's tons of like prison settings for like horror media, but like police stations proper, yeah, that's pretty unique, I'd say. So, and of course, this being the revitalization of that set game, you guys, of course, bet your ass that this is, gonna be nominated. And of course, or nominated as nominee. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is also a respectable remake of a classic from the mid-90s, especially during a time when Zelda was kind of in its waning years. Like, not waning, but just kind of more wasn't really released. Because keep in mind, the original game came out between Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. So it kind of got overlooked. This version came out, and rightfully so. So yeah. But I'm also going to give the nod to another remake from one of the big three when it comes to publishing games. To all three of them, there's nominee for all three of them here, because I just remembered Age of Empires 2 was a Microsoft game. But for Sony, we've got Medieval. So the original game came out in 1998 as well. So, sort of, tongue-in-cheek, spooky, medieval, not really a horror game, but just kind of a kids horror game for the PlayStation 1. And it was pretty fun. You played as Sir Daniel Fortesque in his quest to pretty much just, after he was resurrected, to pretty much help save everything from being taken over by like this evil warlock dude. And it's honestly a lot of fun. And it's kind of surprising that no one has talked about this since. I don't see why. This is still a really good remake. I think part of it is because, well, like I mentioned last time, Sony just is kind of allergic to their older franchises. So, and they don't really bring attention to this, which is a damn shame, because this is a good remake. I would definitely check it out if you're interested in checking out revitalized PlayStation 1 games, because it's awesome. And then last but not least, we've got Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. The only remaster, but it's a really good remaster. I think I streamed this once. I know I streamed Age of Empires 1 a couple of times. I think I streamed this one once, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's still pretty fun. Especially since this version not only includes all the DLC that released up until that point. There were some DLC packs that were released since. But, adds in more content for the game, which is always awesome. But also, the new sprites, I think that they're pretty cool to look at. And considering that this is a highly regarded game in the series, yeah. So, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of thinking, if I'm going to be honest, it's a close call between Resident Evil 2 and Age of Empires 2. I respect Zelda, Link's Awakening, and Medieval for being awesome remakes. But I don't know, Age of Empires 2 and Resident Evil 2, those are really, really close. But you guys know the rule. I ended up having to choose one. And I think I've already changed my mind. Okay, yeah, I think I've changed my mind already. I'm gonna make sure that I do this. So, alright. Let me make sure I get the picture for this so that you guys do not see it. Because, yeah, just me thinking about it. Yeah, I don't worry, I didn't mess up. I would have messed up if I actually did it, though. So, yeah. I'm going to lower my thing so that you guys do not see what game I'm replacing this with, because, yeah. God damn it. This is so embarrassing. But whatever. I don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, though, they're both really damn good. They're both really damn good at revitalizing their respective games. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, there we go. So, there. Let's do this. So, the best remake remaster award goes to Resident Evil 2 remake. I was originally going to give this to Age of Empires 2. I really was. But I think we'll also keep in mind that, like, you know, we are, like, because my mindset was like, oh, like, Age of Empires is not going to really have a lot of awards. But it doesn't matter because I already gave them an award for 2021's list. So, yeah, I think, and also I think most people would definitely say Resident Evil 2 Remake is just the better version. It's just the better game. It pains me because I'm a huge RTS person, but I can't deny that Resident Evil 2's remake was a phenomenal remake in every single definition. And I mean, honestly, this, along with Resident Evil 7, they did bring back Resident Evil as, like, being cool again. Because, again, for it wasn't since Resident Evil 4's original game that Resident Evil was taken seriously anymore. Like, again, that was the last game that Resident Evil was taking any semblance of seriousness, which is kind of sad. But as far as, you know, this remake goes, it is a phenomenal updated version of the game. I mean, again, it has a better it's an awesome retelling of the events of the original game. It has the original, you know, characters. It is missing some content, but, like, it's still a phenomenal version. And frankly, this is, like, the over the top gameplay is objectively better when it comes to Resident Evil games. I do not want to hear it from people who talk about, oh, but, you know, the tank controls are fine. No, they're not. Like, granted, in cases like Silent Hill, those are fine because the camera moves with you. Static cameras on a backdrop just aged way more poorly. So, this is the best way to play Resident Evil 2, for sure. So, that's all I gotta say. Alright, best art direction. So this is the visual aesthetics and style of the game. So again, this is the most subjective part of the list, but I don't care. This is my stream. So did the Academy respect the choices? I mean, okay, this isn't a terrible choice, but, like, come on, man. So, okay. I like Shikiro, and I like Control, and I like Link's Awakening, but I think Shikiro is, like, Shikiro, and honestly, Death Stranding. I already ranted about Death Stranding, and what continue to talk about with that shit. I think those are the weakest options, because, again, they're not stylized games. Like, they're realistic in their graphics, but that's about it. Like, they don't really have a visual style. So, yeah, those I definitely wouldn't agree with, because, again, graphical fidelity is not the same thing as art direction. So, yeah. Now, as far as Control, that one actually does have a stronger case. At first, I was like, no, it doesn't. But like, the more I thought about it, and because again, this game is basically just kind of like it's like SCP. That started to make me think, okay, there's a bit more of a case. So I understand why they chose Control as far as like a nominee. Again, Link's Awakening is a remake, therefore it feels like it's cheating. And then we've got these other games, Gris, and Symbiont Wild Hearts, not to be confused with Wild Hearts from 2023. I mean, this latter one is like, it's that same style that I talked about earlier, where it's just like, it's very, it's very flash gamey, but like, I don't like that aesthetic. I never liked that aesthetic ever. So, hard no for me personally. As for Gris, let me look at the game again. I mean, it has like a very like Night in the Woodsy sort of aesthetic, which, at least when it comes to its backdrops, which I don't know. I just never really cared for like that sort of aesthetic. Like, I don't know. It's just not really my thing. What ended up winning? Control. Not the worst pick, but I don't know. Again, most of these I just feel like weren't really great picks to begin with. So, but these are what I ended up nominating: Devil May Cry 5, Katana Zero, Total War 3 Kingdoms, and Medieval, and then Children of Morta. I think it should be pretty obvious with every single one of these, just by their covers alone. Devil May Cry has like, yeah, it's more realistic. Same thing with Total War 3 Kingdoms, but they have like a visual presentation to both of them. With Devil May Cry, they added a lot of Cthulhu sort of like elements, specifically with a lot of the armor and the new enemies that you fight, which gives it that sort of aesthetic where that best art direction is warranted. Same thing with Total War 3 Kingdoms in the sense, except this is very like a lot of the UI and even the map, sort of fog of war, is very much in line with Chinese calligraphy, well, writing, but like also like a lot of ancient Chinese painting, since takes place in the Three Kingdoms period of ancient China, basically where there was a giant civil war that was going on. So yeah, like in a sense, yeah, like those I definitely think are much stronger cases. I know I did not nominate Control, but again, it's because that one just is a bit of a stronger case because of those like unique, set pieces, but those are really more just set pieces as opposed to like the whole game. Whereas you're seeing these visual styles throughout the entire game for both of those. And that's why I definitely would say that those warrant that art direction a bit more. So, and then we've got a Medieval and all the other games, indie games. Mostly indie games do have a visual style. Katana Zero and Children of Morta are very retro, 90s looking games. Well, okay, all of them are, but those are more 2D 90s, and Medieval is very like 3D 90s. So, yeah, like I definitely would say that there's a bit more credit for all of these games. But, of course, there can only be one winner. So, the winner for the best art direction of 2019 is Devil May Cry 5. So, I mean, just look at the cover of the game. That should tell you everything when it comes to Devil May Cry. Yes, it's a very, it has a lot of graphical fidelity to it, and the game itself looks beautiful because of it. But again, we're not judging the game based off of that. We're talking about the visual style of the game itself. And yeah, this is honestly one of the most unique Devil May Cry games in terms of its looks, because Devil May Cry, at least the first 3 games even, they had like a quasi like demonic look to them. Not like, horror or like evil demonic, but just kind of more action demonic to them. Like, you know what I mean? Like Devil May Cry 1, for example. It's a very dingy game, but it's more so because, I mean, truth be told, that was supposed to be Resident Evil 4 until Resident Evil 4 was actually made. I'm not going to repeat the story. Millions of people have already talked about that. But yeah, like as far as that's concerned, that makes a bit of sense. And that theme kind of continues here, except instead of it being more like traditional horror demonic, they went for a more like Cthulhu, almost like, I guess, Warhammery light, or like shit, even like Zelda demonic. If you guys know, you know. Like that, more like a very like Cthulhu-esque, where it's like very omnipresent and very like squid-like at points. And that's a pretty cool aesthetic. And of course, it's a good revitalization of an old franchise, and the visuals did translate well to HD. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, definitely do think that this game warrants the best art direction, if it was going to win anything. So, best narrative, best story, best storytelling, best writing. Did the awards bring out the best of it? No, it's still 50-50. Plague Tale and Control, I'm not going to repeat myself. Those are valid choices. And then Outer Worlds and Death Stranding, no. Again, it's Disco Elysium. It's like, okay, spoiler alert, it won again. This game swept the Game Awards. I get it. It's a detective game. It's a crime drama. Like, everyone loves crime dramas. It's like the thing that everyone loves about games. But best narrative? Again, I'm not shitting on Disco Elysium, by the way. I don't disagree with Disco Elysium. It's just, okay, admittedly, it's also because I haven't played the game myself, so I can't even judge it, like, properly, Like, that's kind of also where I'm coming from with this, is that I haven't even played the damn game. So, it's kind of hard for me to judge. I'm not saying I disagree, but it wouldn't be my personal best narrative choice. So, what did I end up choosing? Well, Devil May Cry 5 and Jedi Fallen Order are going to be on here for that. Anyone who remembers me playing Jedi Fallen Order 4 years ago exactly knows kind of the general story. It's basically, a lone Jedi gets found by both the Inquisitors as well as a bunch of resistance people, and they're on a quest to try to find the map that has the database of every single Force user in the galaxy. So, pretty noble quest, and there's quite a few story bombs that at least kind of surprised me a little bit about this game that I thought were pretty cool. And oh yeah, Grease, agree. Best character, fucking 10 out of 10. He's a wise ass, but he's a cool wise ass. I love him. And then, well, Devil May Cry, of course, kind of, being a bit more on the serious side, not taking itself super seriously, kind of like the older games. So this is kind of being more relaxed, but also realizing that, Dante, again, that's kind of what I've been seeing a lot with like a lot of like these games. Once they reach like their 5th game or their 6th game, is that their titular protagonist or their protagonists are realizing that, yeah, they've got a lot to still kick in them, but they're gonna realize that their time is still gonna come. So, and that's pretty noble. And of course, well, like I said, Plague Tale Innocence, I definitely do feel like that the story in Requiem is better. But Innocence was definitely a good starter point for this story about kids surviving basically, the 100 Years' War during the plague. And, well, there's a bunch of rats following them for some suspicious reason, and them trying to get away from the English armies, trying to track them while they use stealth. Pretty noble sort of storyline, I would say. And then Control, again, just kind of more... This one is kind of more of a lore game, but like it's still pretty cool. Again, it's by Remedy, so you guys know that they're going to be really damn good with their storytelling. I mean, they made the Alan Wake games and they made the Max Payne games. Of course, they would put in a ton of writing into Control. As far as, our main character, which, wow. I just also realized, fucking hell. Okay, this is the worst fucking thing tonight. I sincerely fucking apologize, people. Holy shit. Okay. This is all going to be edited out once I get this uploaded onto YouTube, by the way. Okay, anyways. Shit, what was I talking about? So update, sorry, someone messaged me. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. But yeah, as far as like Jesse Faden is concerned, sorry, her name blocked out my fucking mind. She works for this agency, which is basically like the SCP agency. But she kind of goes through kind of a revelation as to, shit, this is obviously all fucked up, but like, are we kind of fucked up about doing this too? Like, containing a lot of these things? Like, there's just a lot of like ethical questions about if there's something supernatural, but it's not a threat, should it still be contained? Like, it kind of brings up that moral question that something like SCP wouldn't bring up. And I like those ethics. So, and of course, it's all helped by the fact that, well, okay, I'm not going to spoil it. Let's go into the best narrative. Which, if you're seeing a bit of a common pattern, I don't blame you. With some of my picks. So, the award for the best narrative of 2019 goes to Control. So, again, just kind of the unique it's more so just the unique story, like the unique way that the story is told, I think is definitely what makes this the best narrative, because it's not really that complicated of a story. Like, it's more so just kind of the way that like the story is told, because it takes full advantage of the fact that this is like a game that deals with supernatural like entities that break reality. Like, it takes full advantage of that and subverts a lot of like expectations in a good way that someone like Rian Johnson wishes he would able to fucking write. So as far as like that's concerned, yeah, no, like I think that like that sort of trippiness is helping engaging with this sort of moral question about how to deal with um this sort of stuff. And it's kind of relatable, especially when it comes to why shit, like I mentioned earlier, like, you know, containing a lot of these things like a zoo, kind of like I mentioned with Planet Zoo. Like, it's kind of weird to think about. So, yeah. But of course, let's get into the game of the year. So, if you guys haven't spotted a bit of a pattern, well, you're about to see it with this one. Game of the year. Did they... So yeah, the best game to represent 2019. There's actually quite a lot that you could represent. This year was actually pretty overall a pretty good year for gaming. Not necessarily like I would say like top tier, but like solid enough. So let's see the choices that the original game awards give out. Okay, well, Sekiro won Game of the Year, but let's talk about the choices. Again, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out in 2018, not 2019. Although, let me check this. Per Smash Bros. Ultimate. Okay, okay, it was a December release. Okay. That makes a little bit of sense. Because again, they have the cutoff date for December, and I think halfway through November, I think I'm starting to catch on that their cutoff date I think is like November like 10th or something. So which is really fucking bizarre, but okay. But yeah, as far as like that, yeah, obviously because of that, I can't nominate Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for 2019 because it's a game from 2018. So don't agree with that one. And then I've already been spieling this out for a million fucking times. I'm not nominating Outer Worlds or Death Stranding. You can fight me on that one, but I'm not. Control and Sekiro, I do agree with. So, and of course, Sekiro won Game of the Year for them, which this is actually I think this is actually, no, this is the second time that they gave out like an award for something that I actually do agree with like a lot, because obviously Sekiro being a phenomenal game in its own right with, you know, its combat, its locales, its, you know, innovations to the Soulsborne genre. Of course. Resident Evil 2, again, it's kind of like what I mentioned with Resident Evil 4 for 2023, where it's like, again, I like the game, but it's not a new game. It's a remake of an old game. So I can't nominate it for Game of the Year. Because, again, it's not a fully new game. So, what did I end up choosing? Well, this is the first year I actually am nominating 5 games. So, Devil May Cry 5, Sekiro, Hunt Showdown, Control, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think that these are the best games to represent 2019. Devil May Cry, and honestly, as far as like this, I think you guys have finally noticed the pattern. Devil May Cry 5, Sekiro, Control, and Jedi Fallen Order were like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of like action adventure games from that year. Like those were like the top dog games, like single player games that everyone like universally agreed were phenomenal. Like, because with Devil May Cry, that's a veteran like franchise, you know, hack and slash that was able to, you know, be a part of the wave of like, Capcom being successful again, because Capcom, people forget this, but Capcom was having a fucking terrible time, starting in the late 2000s all the way up until the early 2010s, which coincides with what I said earlier about Resident Evil being kind of shitty for that time. But this was able to not only be very successful in its own right, but also be a phenomenal hack and slash. But then you have something like Sekiro, which in and of itself is a very hard game, but it is a From Software game, another pretty veteran sort of, studio who was able to release a game that changed the formula of like a lot of the games that they've been making up until that point, and still come out swinging, and still prove that they can innovate even if they have a general formula, which that is pretty awesome. And then you have something like Control, which, it does have shooting elements. You could argue it's a third-person shooter, but I think there's enough like other stuff in it that does make it more of an action adventure overall, as opposed to just a straight-up shooter game. But like as far as it being the most experimental of the games, like it was a very phenomenal, like sort of, unique blend of supernatural with sci-fi and just the moral dilemma of dealing with these sort of entities and just going with it. And a lot of people loved this game's story. And then you have something like Jedi Fallen Order, which came out near the tail end of that year, which was able to do something similar to like Sekiro or whatever, and reach like a mainstream audience because of the Star Wars license. But it was also made by a studio that was mostly known for making first-person shooters at that point, and was able to prove that they can sort of find that perfect blend. So yeah, and then of course I chose Hunt Showdown in here. It's like the least like of all of these, but it's still a phenomenal like multiplayer game. If you want to nominate a multiplayer for Game of the Year, that's a games like Hunt Showdown is what you should be doing. But of course, enough rambling. Let's get into this, because this is the most important award of the night. So let's calm down. So, the award for the best game to represent the year 2019, the game of the year of 2019, goes to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I told you you'd see a pattern here. So, yes, everyone wins. But why did I end up choosing Jedi Fallen Order? And it's not just because this is the game out of all of them that I actually did play, which makes this actually the first game of the year that I actually played through the entirety of the game on stream. But it's because it's the best game overall. Whereas Sekiro, because like I was kind of describing, Sekiro had an amazing gameplay loop with, it being like a hard, challenging game, while also being a Souls-like, where you're doing a bunch of, parkour and stuff. And then Devil May Cry was a way easier experience. That was a bit of a hack and slash, had a bit of a wise-ass character, and fundamentally was a, enjoyable experience of like a veteran franchise, like an old franchise overall. And then Control, with its narrative and its mind-bending sequences, and just kind of doing what Remedy does. Well, funny enough, even though those games did the best in those respective categories, I feel like Jedi Fallen Order was the best game that did all of those things overall. It was like a jack of all trades sort of situation here, where, you know, it kind of did all of those things amazingly and even exceeded in a lot of those. Like, and it also helps that, of course, this game is rewarding when it comes to its progression. It's, again, more of an action adventure, but it also even takes other elements from, like, you know, a lot of people compared this with Sekiro. I don't know how to pronounce it. But it also had a lot of, like, other commonalities with other games, such as the Uncharted games, or how people were comparing this a little bit to Ratchet and Clank with, you know, you got yourself a little, like, buddy who helped you along the way, and stuff like Tomb Raider, and, like, it basically was able to grab, like, elements from all of these games and make it its own. And, of course, as you see right there, it uses the license respectively, and also, considering that, like, this was the game that followed up on, like, the last major AAA Star Wars game that came up before this was Battlefront 2 2017, this game shows that Star Wars media can still be, like, awesome, especially considering that this game came out the same year as fucking Rise of Skywalker. I'm not ranting about that game. I'm not gonna rant about that movie because you know how much I fucking despise that shit. But, you know, overall, like, this was a pretty good sort of thing. So yeah, just to recap this, let's go over, yeah, so this was actually the first year where, you know, like, where there wasn't a game that won more than one award. But I think in this particular case, I think it's way more warranted. So, Outer Wilds won indie game, Sekiro won action adventure, Greedfall won RPG, Metro Exodus won shooter game, Sim strategy, like Planet Zoo won Sim strategy, Hunt Showdown won multiplayer, Fate of Atlantis won DLC, Resident Evil 2 won the remake, Devil May Cry 5 won Best Art Direction, Control won Best Narrative, and then, of course, Jedi Fallen Order won the Game of the Year. As far as top 10 favorites, these are my personal favorite games that came out that year. So, yeah, obviously, like I said, Devil May Cry, Sekiro, Control, and Jedi Fallen Order. But then also Hunt Showdown, Resident Evil 2 Remake, The Division 2, A Medieval, Plague Tale Innocence, and Age of Empires Definitive Edition. In no particular order, by the way. And what would a good list be like this be without a guilty pleasure? Which I admittedly kind of forgot one. Yeah, you guys knew this was gonna, you guys knew this one was going to pop up. Again, these are awards that would like, either never would or were just close to not winning. So, again, it's obvious with this final one, but I don't care. Shut up. Alright. Again, I'll make sure that the next slideshow is better. But these are guilty pleasures. Still Division 2. Again, World War II strategy game. But it didn't get enough love from a lot of people. Like, I was kind of surprised. Because, you know, the first Steel Division I thought was actually fucking awesome. Like, underrated, as a matter of fact. So to see the sequel just kind of not be as good, that's kind of sad. And then, of course, we got Remnant from the Ashes and The Surge 2. Remnant from the Ashes being a more traditional RPG, while The Surge 2 being a Souls-like game, just more sci-fi-like. I think they're kind of cool aesthetically. Like, as far as, like, games like that are concerned, yeah. I can see why people don't like them, but I still think they're pretty cool. And of course, to recap this whole thing, of course, it's help wanted. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's, a series that I am forever stuck with for the rest of my life, whether I like it or not. Of course, this was going to be, though. This might be the last time that you see FNAF as a guilty pleasure, because as you guys know, I streamed all the other games, and frankly, yeah, no. So, but this one I actually respect, as this is a VR game. It's essentially a remake, kind of like the first, at least the first 4 games, with a little bit of sister location. So, yeah, but because it's FNAF and FNAF has that reputation, I would never nominate this game. So, but there you have it. That is the Game Awards for 2019. Again, I do apologize that this ended up being a bit one of the weaker episodes. I will make sure that the 2018 episode will be significantly better, and I'm really excited to get into more of like the 2010s, especially since I wasn't really like paying attention to the Game Awards as much in my teenage years. So yeah, but regardless, I hope you guys did enjoy this. As always, if you guys did, make sure to hit that follow button down below and turn the bell icon so that you'll notify exactly when I'll be streaming. While you guys are at it, make sure to check out the links down below as well, specifically the Discord, SoundCloud, YouTube, all that fun stuff. And if you guys haven't already, you can also hit that subscribe button. If you can't necessarily do that, that's completely fine. I'm just glad that you guys took time to watch this. But regardless of all that, though, make sure to share the stream to other people as well, and continue to be awesome people in the process. But until then, I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good night, guys. Bye.